These 3 organisms became Alcina's daughters and were named Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela. Pretty creepy when you realise they're made just entirely of flies but with an attached consciousness. In order to support herself financially, Alcina took control of the family vineyards and winemaking business. However, to enrich the flavour, Alcina would use the blood of her maids and servants, as well as using the blood to sustain herself and her daughters. Over the years, Alcina and her daughters would employ a steady stream of servants and consume them using their blood to create a signature brand of wine called Sanguinis Virginis, which is Latin for maiden's blood. The women who were drained of their blood were turned into Maroica and Samka, while the males were turned into scarecrows in the vineyard. Perhaps the black sheep of all the 4 lords in terms of physical alteration and mutation, Donna Beneviento lived up high in the mountain, residing in House Beneviento. Not much is known of her family, apart from the fact that her parents committed suicide while she was young. She seemed to have a sister, Bernadette Beneviento, who died after Cadu implantation by Miranda failed. It's also unknown whether Claudia Beneviento was a daughter of Donna or a sister, as Claudia died in 1996, aged 9. Due to the fact that Donna's parents committed suicide during her childhood, Donna was suffering from an undiagnosed mental illness, but this exacerbated her mental health and led to her becoming a recluse. This is also due to Donna possessing a huge scar on her face. She covered her face whilst in public. And this leads us on to Angie. This doll was made for Donna by her father before his suicide, and she talked to it frequently, even preferring to communicate to others through Angie instead of herself. Anyway, it soon came to be Donna's turn for Cadu implantation by Miranda. Although Donna didn't mutate in a drastically physical way, she did have a good level of affinity. Donna developed an ability where she was able to produce and secrete a substance, allowing her to control plants infected by the mold. This effect on the mind is frequently shown during Ethan's visit to House Beneviento, as well as seeing the flowers around the house and the grounds. Ethan witnesses terrifying hallucinations, including a massively deformed newborn baby. This is down to Donna's plants unlocking Ethan's darkest fears. In this case, that Rose would be turned into a mutated monster and seeing what he thought was his deceased wife Mia. This is a similar sight seen by the gardener when he was asked to plant the infected flowers. Miranda, however, saw Donna as mentally underdeveloped and an unfit vessel for her daughter's consciousness. This didn't stop Miranda from inviting her to the Four Lords Council, however, and even making her an adoptive daughter, much to the delight of her gardener. Donna seems to be the only one of the Four Lords that doesn't experiment on people or dead bodies with the Cadu. She seems to spread it amongst her many dolls, which could then be controlled by Donna, as seen in the Beneviento boss fight. Salvatore Moreau is the most mysterious of the Four Lords. The game doesn't really give us many obvious clues as to his background. We see that he possesses a tattoo on his arm of what looks like a jellyfish with the word mother on a scroll, as well as another tattoo of an anchor on his forearm. This may signal to us that Moreau was a fisherman or even a sailor. Like with all the rest, Moreau's turn for Cadu implantation came up, but this went wrong due to his low affinity with the Cadu, and this reaction turned him into a grotesque fish monster with webbed hands and feet. In Miranda's notes, it states that Moreau has a regular cell division, which may explain why we see the green goo all over the place, and the fact that Moreau is always throwing up. Moreau's devotion to Mother Miranda is obvious. He sees her as his real mother, and he's constantly trying to impress her, but he has little to no self-esteem due to his appearance. Moreau's desperation to be seen as favourable by Miranda and the other lords is showcased when Ethan takes the flask, and Moreau pleads with him not to, because the other lords will think he's incompetent and he has fears that Mother Miranda will reject him. He seems to hang out in his reservoir most of the time and only comes out for council meetings with the other lords. Moreau was one of the lords who attempted heavy experimentation with the Cadu, infecting villagers in his lab near the reservoir. In a note in the reservoir, we can see that Moreau infected a villager with the Cadu who had almost turned into a lichen, and this villager was sent to the lab. Arriving at the lab, we can see another note stating that Moreau tried putting wolf blood into the spine of what could be the villager turned lichen that was sent to the lab. This likely created the Varkalak, the wolf-type creatures first encountered when heading to Moreau's reservoir. Unlike Lady Dimitrescu, Moreau isn't actually able to control his transformation. Therefore, Miranda considered him an unfit vessel for either. Karl Heisenberg is the very first of the Four Lords that Ethan comes across. He is the last of the Four Lords and runs the Heisenberg factory located outside the village. Heisenberg was kidnapped by Miranda as a child and subjected to Cadu implantation. His affinity with the Cadu, according to Miranda, is the most favourable of all the lords. Miranda mentions that Heisenberg has internal organs closely identical to that of the Narca Japonica, which is the Japanese sleeper ray. These organs have electrical properties which allow Heisenberg to control magnetic fields with his entire body. Miranda was also impressed with Heisenberg's abilities, calling him a splendid specimen, but he is still an unfit vessel for Miranda's daughter Eva. Heisenberg despised the other lords, calling Lady Dimitrescu Lady Supersized Bitch, Donna Beneviento ugly ass psycho doll, and Moreau a moronic freak. He would constantly argue with Lady Dimitrescu. It seemed that anyone who came into the village from the outside was captured and taken before Miranda and the Four Lords, and judging from the amount of skeletons Ethan encounters after evading Heisenberg's traps, it's clear that Miranda favours Heisenberg. Despite Heisenberg being Miranda's clear favourite, much to the disgust of Lady Dimitrescu, Heisenberg hated Miranda for what she did to him and how she took his body for her selfish purpose and stripped him of his dignity. He knows that himself and the other lords are just a bunch of failed experiments to Miranda, and he plots to kill her. Heisenberg was carrying out inhumane experiments with the Cadu in his factory in order to build an army to take down and kill Miranda. Some notable subjects are Sturm, the propeller head guy, and the series of sold-out mutants. Heisenberg came up with a plan to use Rose to kill Miranda, but what that plan entailed we don't know, as Ethan refused to even entertain using his own daughter as a weapon. They all turned out to be failed test subjects in the end, but Miranda still thought that they had a purpose. They did still technically have some form of power over the region, and they formed a council together. So with Miranda's Four Lords being unfit vessels for Eva, Miranda was eventually approached by the Connections, the organisation that Mia was secretly working for. Miranda gave the Connections some of Eva's DNA and a sample of the mold, and they created Evelyn. However, Evelyn was defective. She aged rapidly due to her needing a regular serum, as her cells reproduced at an accelerated rate. In her lab, we can see pictures of Miranda working with the Connections. In one picture, she is holding a baby Evelyn, and in another, she can be seen posing for a photo with Evelyn, Alan, and Mia. Now, we all know what happens next. The events of Resident Evil 7 play out. So, what happened to Zoe Baker after Resident Evil 7? We know that she was saved by her Uncle Joe with the help of Ethan and Mia, and we have a document which shows an incident report written by Zoe. It states that after she was rescued, she was taken to a BSAA facility, only to find out that she had been put on the list of the deceased. She was being held in quarantine. She reported that there was a cover-up by the BSAA of a natural gas leak which killed the Bakers. She mentions that someone is keeping the truth hidden. She fears that because her name was on the list of victims, that this organisation would kill her. Instead, they gave her a new identity and let her go. The new identity was apparently for her own safety. As she had witnessed what Evelyn was, Zoe could be considered a dangerous person, and the Connections had likely earmarked her for assassination. Zoe mentioned that she attempted to contact Ethan and Mia to say thank you, but they were nowhere to be found. She then mentions that she's going to investigate the BSAA, as she believed they know where Ethan and Mia are, and she also wanted to dig up information on what the BSAA is hiding regarding the Baker incident. As well as finding out what we already know from Resident Evil 7, Zoe found out from the BSAA incident report that the entire Dulvey incident, along with innocent civilians being infected, was caused due to the BSAA's failure to eliminate Evelyn in Munich. This is why Evelyn was being transported to Central America, so that the Connections could protect their bioweapon. The report goes on to state that the Connections are a crime syndicate. They don't have a headquarters, so can't really be traced. This organisation was founded by none other than Brandon Bailey. If you aren't sure who Brandon Bailey is, he's one of the founding members of the Umbrella Corporation, along with Oswell E. Spencer. He was mainly based in Africa, working on the progenitor virus, which went on to cause the Raccoon City outbreak. Given that Brandon Bailey spent so much time with Oswell E. Spencer, that's probably how he came to know of Miranda and her work. Anyway, Spencer and Bailey basically fell out after having different visions for the company, and Bailey started the Connections. This report states that Bailey's direct motivation wasn't science or advancing evolution, it was purely for commercial gain, manufacturing and selling bioweapons basically. Zoe includes the transcripts from the BSAA interviews with Ethan and Mia. Ethan's interview mentions them moving him and Mia to Europe. Mia's, well, that's a bit more interesting. It seems that Ethan still has no clue that Mia is involved. Is Ethan really that naive? Oh well, anyway, Zoe mentions that 2 years on from the incident, she has been working as a reporter in New Orleans. She says that she has received a letter from Mia saying that they've had a daughter. After Resident Evil 7, Ethan and Mia were relocated to Europe by the BSAA. This was apparently for their own safety, as they had witnessed atrocities caused by the Connections who created Evelyn. Similar to Zoe Baker, the BSAA feared that they too would be assassination targets of the Connections, so therefore placed the Winters under witness protection. Ethan and Mia were expecting, and Rosemary Winters was born on the 2nd of August 2020. We see a flashback which shows Ethan on the phone to the doctor, who wants Ethan and Mia to come in and discuss their daughter's test results. Mia looks visibly concerned at this point, as of course she knows the secret, that Ethan is basically dead and made up of mold. Mia is trying to sweep the Baker incident under the rug and flat out doesn't want to talk about it. I guess she is concerned that they would do scans on Ethan and figure out that he isn't normal. That's why she says it's not Rose she is worried about, it's Ethan. Anyway, shortly after this conversation, Mia is abducted by Miranda and imprisoned in her lab so that Miranda can infiltrate the Winters' home and kidnap Rose. Miranda mentions in her diary that she learned of Rose's location due to the connections. Now, me personally, I don't believe this is literal. I think that she means that the mess they caused around the whole Baker incident caused Ethan and Mia to become infected, and then conceive a molded super baby who is basically Evelyn's successor. Miranda was probably able to see Rosemary's existence through the network of consciousness that the mold provided. After she had Rose and crystallized her body and separated her into the 4 flasks, she had no more need for the villagers in order to aid her search for the perfect vessel, so she unleashed the Lycans on the village, which is why everyone is dead or in hiding when Ethan arrives there. It's clear that Miranda doesn't need her 4 lords anymore either. Miranda set Ethan up, wanting to see how strong he was and at the same time using him to kill the 4 lords for her. In the end, Miranda's plan failed, as Rose's powers were so great that when Miranda tried to use Rose to bring her daughter's consciousness back, Rose was able to reject it and attack Miranda, draining her power via the mold. We see Rose at the end. She's visiting her father's grave, but years now seem to have passed. Now the question is this: how long has it been? Rose must be, 18 years old here at least? Is it 2039 now? Or has Rose got the same defect that Evelyn had, and that she ages faster? Or could it be that this scene takes place after the events of Resident Evil 9? I guess we'll just have to wait to find out. So going back to the Zoe Baker report for a second. Zoe says that she finds another letter in her mailbox after reading the letter from Mia. A letter with the BSAA logo on it addressed to Chris Redfield. The letter states that the BSAA have been concerned with Chris's recent activity. It states that Chris has been accessing top secret documents without permission. As we know, Chris Redfield turned up at the end of Resident Evil 7, working for the BSAA, and was begrudgingly having to work alongside Blue Umbrella. Now, over the years after failing to take out Evelyn in Munich and the Dolby incident that followed, the BSAA tried extremely hard to cover their tracks, using a gas leak as a cover story, all the while refusing to take accountability for their mistakes. They chose to sweep this incident under the rug and cover it up rather than come clean. Their motivation for the cover-up was clear, not just to save face, but also because they were backed by the United Nations. They had some heavy hitters behind them, and without the backing of the United Nations, the BSAA would likely crumble. Due to this cover-up, Chris began to lose trust in the BSAA. Over the next 3 years, Chris was a part of the elite Hound Wolf squad in the BSAA. Chris spent the next few years with his ear to the ground, following up leads on the mold, and finally gets a breakthrough. They'd received intelligence that Miranda knew the location of Ethan and Mia, as well as Rose, and had kidnapped Mia in order to infiltrate the Winters' home for the sole purpose of abducting Rose. Without BSAA headquarters authorization, Chris took control of the squad and went rogue. Their purpose? To go after Miranda. In the letter to Chris, the BSAA ask who Miranda is, but on the back of the letter, the words "It's not over" are scribbled onto the back. Did Chris send this letter to Zoe in case something happened to him in Europe, so the truth wouldn't be buried? Chris's suspicions of the BSAA are amplified when he realizes that they sent bioweapons to the village. But why? Well, we'll get to those theories at the end of this video. We learn that Ethan really died back in Resident Evil 7, and this, right here, is the exact moment that he died. It seems that from the moment Ethan stepped into the Baker's guest house, he was done for. He was already infected. Jack's now infamous majestic curb stomp gave Ethan severe brain damage, but Ethan woke up due to the mold repairing his cells and regained consciousness just as he was being dragged into the main house. During Ethan's hallucination of Evelyn, she also mentions this.
You mean you didn't think it was weird? No matter how much you got hurt?
This was always something that I found odd. Ethan literally had his hand sawed off by Mia, stapled back on by Zoe Baker, and of course it worked perfectly afterwards. He was curb stomped by Jack, slashed by Molded, fell from great heights, even had his freaking leg chopped off, and he was still fine. This brutal treatment continued into Village, as Ethan had his fingers bitten off, had his other hand cut off by Lady Dimitrescu, which he reattached, was stabbed by Lady Dimitrescu, fell from great heights over and over again, had his heart ripped out and still not hurt. Due to the mold having regenerative properties, this gave Ethan great healing powers. Now the fact that Ethan was technically dead means that this scene makes a whole lot more sense now. We find a secret cave that is full of mold. At the bottom, the same antique coin and weapons chest from Dolby, and a laptop which states that the mold found in the village is a 99.95% match to the Mutamycete in Dolby. This mold here is revealed to be the source of it all. The laptop also states that the mold is a network of consciousness. This explains why Jack was able to communicate with Ethan whilst Ethan was trapped in the mold on the ship. This leads us back onto the mold.